Kristyna, how amazing to have you on All Things Conflict. I've been very much looking forward to this conversation. We only met recently, but I'm really interested in your work because you're diving into the world of divorce, the murky world of divorce, where really there are no winners. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you get involved in and what you do. And then you also help people, don't you, to come through the process of divorce. Because I feel that when people embark on this, clearly we do need legal advice and legal support because we're making decisions that can affect the rest of our lives. But very few people get support with that journey from an emotional context. And by not having that support, it can amplify and magnify all of the difficulties. So maybe you'd like to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Maria. I am Kristyna Hawkett. I'm the founder of Minus One Club. I am a divorce and separation coach, and indeed, I inspire to help people getting through the entire process, no matter which stage of their journey they at. Yes, I mean, everything you just said, I can just pull out bits and pieces of your sentences. The fact is correct. There aren't any winners, and essentially there are many losers. The biggest losers are the children. And the process of a divorce doesn't affect just the parents, it's the entire family, the dynamics, not just mum and dad, not just the children. There are grandparents, there are uncles, there are aunties. It's really a change that affects and changes the rest of the life for a lot of people. And you are right. If you come in and you are too emotional, unable to see that clear, focused decisions are needed, the rest of your life might not be as good as what you can make it in the middle of the most traumatic time of your life.
Yeah, because I like the way you said your life might not be as good as you could make it, because out of out of that place of conflict and despair and upset and difficulty, you may live with some of the decisions that you make from that place.
You really do. And we are talking about family justice. And as
Mm.
somebody that indeed have gone through a divorce myself, and I have a teenager myself as well, the second you enter the legal system, the whole emotional balance it just disappears, and it gets really difficult. And once you are in a legal system, i.e. you do hire the lawyers, you are heading to court, everything becomes really quite traumatic, dark, stressful, fast-paced and slow-paced at the same time, super confusing, and it is hard to imagine what happens afterwards, and does this end, how does this end, what my life will be like. And at the same time you have everybody around you in your life asking you, oh, how is it going, when will you be done? It's really, really hard place to be.
It is, yeah. It's I think I'd like you to ask, I think I'd like to ask you to perhaps, you said you had some lived experience yourself, and so have I. But I think I'd like you to say, when you think about that journey of divorce, because you embark on it, it's like getting on a ship, isn't it? And can you steer that ship? And who's joining, and who's getting off, and is the ship going to sink? Um, can you sort of talk us through some of the sort of pivotal moments where you see people needing support?
100%. I actually talk about earthquake rather than getting on a ship.
Oh,
And
right.
the
Okay. I like that.
the only way I can describe my own experience, and I would imagine a lot of the listeners will actually feel quite familiar with that feeling, is the earthquake just comes in. You don't plan for it. You're not prepared for it. It doesn't matter if you are the lever or the left. Once the earthquake is here, it just trembles and it's nasty. And the way I felt was sort of holding on to the walls with having my daughter under one arm and having the dog under the other, and
Oh,
holding on to the
right.
walls and just making sure everybody's okay. And then the earthquake stops, but it's the aftershocks. They keep coming, and you still stand there and you're still really concerned that everything will still come down on you. And eventually you do venture out and you start looking for the damage. And there is damage, there are holes in the walls, and you need somebody to repair it. And at this stage, you actually don't know where to turn. You think, okay, I will need a lawyer. So you go to a lawyer, but a lawyer opens another 10 cracks because they tell you you need to do this, you need to do that. So it's constant DIY, literally do it yourselves, while you pay a lot of money to other people giving you contradicting advice. And it's learning on the go. I think that is one of the main reasons why I left my corporate life behind and retrained as a divorce coach. I do know there aren't that many people that will be there during that or after that earthquake saying, here, this is what you need to repair that wall. Here, this is what you need for that gap. Because searching for the help to repair all these damages is really exhausting. It's time consuming. And yeah, it's scary.
And who can you trust?
And who can you trust?
Because your trust has been eroded in this process, and then you've got to rebuild trust in yourself, in your decision making, in the world around you, in the people. Yeah,
The
it's
thing is,
very
there is no
tricky.
manual. There is no manual, and there is no such thing as to sane divorces. But the help is out there. I feel very passionate about supporting people getting through the process. I think one of the biggest issues is a lot of people tend to go to family solicitors straight away. They are amazing, they need to be there, but they are trained to be detached emotionally because they are only people too and they need to do their job properly. And it becomes really frustrating to enter a legal system that you, as a fresh, about to be divorcee, you know nothing about.
Mm.
And I refer to the legal language as legalese.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally always feel like saying to my legal team, can you please speak in English? I don't understand what you're asking me to do. And I had to Google what everything means because it's language you don't come across until you need it to repair the hole in the wall.
And that's interesting because, this series of all things conflict is about the justice system. And I think what you're touching on is whether it's divorce or anything else. Once you
Mhm.
go into the justice system, once you're being called into that, or the injustice system, maybe, um, there's a whole lot of jargon. There's a whole lot of what you called legalese. There's a whole language. You're seen a different way. You're not seen as who you believe you are because you're just moving through something, and it leaves people feeling vulnerable, incapable. It can literally reduce all of your confidence. Have you seen that happening?
Yes, I have. With my clients and even myself in the past. The word you just used, Maria, incapable, that's exactly it. And it equals scary.
Yes, and and even if you think, well, I want to get to court and I'm going to have my say, and this judge is, because that's the belief, when people are very convicted about going to court, they have this kind of belief that this judge is waiting for me to tell them my story of unfairness, and they're going to be so delighted that I've told them how badly I've been treated or how unfair it all is, and they're going to put it all right. And it's never like that. I mean, nobody wins.
The reason I laughed is I am not laughing at people
No.
feeling that way. That's certainly not funny. But I laughed because 9 times out of 10, this is the genuine belief that there is a judge at the family court sitting there waiting to read pages and pages and pages of everyone's life story. The reality is the judge probably has something close to under 40 minutes for the case if the day is going well. The judge doesn't know the people. The judge actually doesn't really care who's done what, because that's not the judge's job. Again, they have to be emotionally detached. And for people going through divorce, it takes a while to realize that the emotions at the family court and with their lawyers, it's not that they don't care. It's just that it doesn't matter in terms of the case itself. And that's really hard to grasp.
And actually, I think I would go further. I think you're being quite generous to the
I'm
system.
trying to.
I would say that mostly judges have very little tolerance for co-parents squabbling and reducing it to a court, because I think most judges, I mean, obviously there are serious cases that need legal answers, but people arguing over, can I have the child every other Sunday, and having no ability to negotiate that, and expecting a judge to take over responsibility. I think judges can get quite punitive about that because they don't see that as the work they should be doing.
So I've actually pulled some statistics
Oh, great.
for this podcast, and I was sort of aware of the numbers, but really refresh of the numbers, I genuinely sat there and I thought, wow. So exactly what you said, Maria, and maybe I should explain to the listeners so I'll make better sense. There are two types of the what is called the Children Act that goes to the family court. There is a private cases, sorry, and public cases. Public cases are often started by the local councils. This is really for children that all of us as a society should really worry about. We worry about their safety, that some harm will come to them. But the private law cases are 99%, of course, referred to divorce cases. You are exactly right. There are so many high conflict divorces where both parties are not that it's not the case that they are unable to communicate, but they become so emotionally involved that the divorce almost becomes who wins, who loses game between them. Typically, they both hire family solicitors. Typically, the family solicitors will be acting in their own client's best interest, i.e., telling them separately and individually, take this to court, an application is filed, and indeed, this ends up in front of the family court. Now, back to the statistics. The Ministry of Justice, they do quarterly reports on all sorts of matters. I've looked at the family law and I've broke down the family law into specific cases. So the Private Children Act cases, quarterly report between April and June 2025, they were 13,800 new applications in 3 months. That's just under 14,000 new applications in 3 months in the UK. That affects, or what that is, 20,500 individual children in these cases in 3 months.
Yeah.
So
20,000 kids about to embark through that process, which, that's the applications in 3 months, but you're looking
3
at
months.
1, 2, 3 years of absolute turmoil and sometimes longer.
Well, I have one more statistic to come.
Yeah.
This makes it even scarier. Once a private children case, if you like, ends up at the family court, somebody called Cafcass is
Yes.
appointed. Again, for listeners, Cafcass is, and I will read that because it's a really long name, it's Children and Family Court Advisory and Support Service. What that means is every time there is a new private children case at the court, one person from Cafcass has to visit the children. The person has to interview each of the parents individually. And that's just the beginning. This is just to get set for, the first couple of hearings. Now, I'm going to go back to the statistics I just said. This is 20,500 children every 3 months. Just under 14,000 new cases in 3 months. Do you know how many people Cafcass employs to do this? 2,258. That's the whole Cafcass. Only 75% out of the 2,000, or just over 2,000, are actually qualified social workers. So how much time, would be my question, does a Cafcass representative have to speak to the children, speak to the parents, make a real informed decision report that goes to the judge, and judge who's never met any of these people and will read one report that will decide, not just at one hearing, but eventually will decide the rest of the lives for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of it's so subjective. I mean, I'm not really into bashing anybody or any service or whatever, because everyone's trying to do a piece of the puzzle. But I have seen some really dreadful Cafcass reports and really dreadful Cafcass advice, such as
Likewise.
advising one parent not to bother with mediation and wait for the court. Which, how can that possibly be in the best interests of the children?
No comment.
No, exactly.
Unfortunately,
it speaks for itself. We don't have to comment on it.
It happens. It's the lack of people that are involved, the lack of time, the huge amount of cases that end up at the court, and it's not always needed.
No, that's exactly right. So let's move on to the whole thing about, you've got this organisation, the -1 Club, and where you coach people through. But I know you've a very particular interest in the justice served for children. And so where do you think this is? What do you talk to me about that, about children and the justice system, when it's nothing to do with criminal justice?
Well, part of it is exactly everything I just said. All these statistics, the children become numbers. There isn't enough time to really ensure that the children that are involved are actually getting what is best for them, because very often the high conflict divorce cases get so emotional between the parents that in fact the children are really suffering, not knowing which parent to believe, what to do. They're thrown from left to right, then they have somebody come in talking to them about their parents. This gets read at court. It's heartbreaking for children. Divorces have always happened, always will do, and they are right now. But the children should be not in the middle, but at the center. The parents often forget that. The parents tend to forget that once the lawyers and solicitors are hired, because this is the thing. Now you are in a legal system, and whilst there is not a manual for divorce, there is a manual that the solicitors have that they have to follow. It's form after form after a form. and another, and that just takes the humanity away. And I genuinely don't think there's enough support for the children within this whole process whatsoever. And I have seen that. I have experienced that with people close to me and seeing their own children, perfectly lovely families. But going through the system, at the end of it, you look at the children and you just want to cry. There isn't enough to support them, I don't think. So my biggest thing is, and in fact, I have started partnering up with quite a few family law firms, and I'm very happy to name some or not. I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but some of them are really recognizing the fact that whilst the legal procedure needs to stay really quite strict, they are not qualified to help the clients emotionally, and they're really open to work with divorce coaches. And that's lovely to see. For me personally, as in the past, when I was going through my divorce, I don't think that was even a thing. So it's really nice to see there are lawyers out there that recognize that and start working with their clients and with coaches to provide that emotional support, in the hope that this will be kept out of the court. And it's a little bit sad in a way that if you think we've got to keep this out of the court system to actually get something that will benefit us, that's a little sad. But equally, at this stage where we are at and where the family court are at, it really is the best outcome for everybody involved. And so I'm a huge believer in trying to keep clients focused enough on the fact that, yes, you do need to do your legal paperwork, and yes, the court will still need to stamp stuff, but you can keep yourself and your children away from the actual courtroom if you start thinking about the divorce and what you're doing and how you are behaving a bit more closely.
Yes, it's an interesting thing to keep the children out of the court, because they do not have any place in there. I mean, clearly there will always be some cases that require, expert attention, where the parents have lost capacity, or there are addictions, or other things that need to be taken into consideration. But the general, whether you're poor or whether you're rich, we need to keep children out of legal systems. It damages their childhood.
And
I think that's the message you're giving me, isn't it?
It's 100% the message. I also think that you had a very good point there. There are families that genuinely need that help. There are children that genuinely need intervention from Cafcass and the court. Yet, if the cases that don't need it were kept away from court, how much more time and care would the children that actually really need a support would get? Much more.
Absolutely. And then we get into the realm of what's called parental alienation. And that again is where the children really suffer, because I've seen children, either because we now do voice of the child when they hit about 10. But I've seen children and in the mediation room where they've been totally groomed or coached by the other parent.
Maria, I have done a lot of research on this because I see more and more people using the word parental alienation, and I see people doing it, and I see a lot of women doing it, which I don't really understand. Though financially, maybe you do. Again, those are the cases, not all of them, but a lot of these cases, again, this could be kept out of the court if both of the parents actually focus on what's important long term for the children and for the whole family. But it does happen very often. It is very tragic. And I have also seen, even face to face, children totally I'm going to stay away from the word groomed, which I have heard is being used, but I don't like it, being trained to do certain things. And I have attended few children's psychologists webinars to get a bit more information about signs to look out for, and it's huge. The damage being done to the children really is quite big. But again, at the family court, the judge haven't got time to even figure out if this is the case or not. They have got a report in front of them. They have to make a quick decision. So I think a lot of what could have been and would have been really healthy relationships between parents and the children in question, I think the parents are being denied that. But it is impossible for a judge to grasp all of that from one piece of paper.
They can't. It's
They
impossible.
can't.
They're moving something through a process, because at the end of the day, the legal work, and this is, I think, where you being a divorce coach is really important. The legal work is simply the dismantling of a legal contract. But that's got nothing to do with ending a relationship. I meet people in my work and they're well divorced, and I say, you may be divorced, but you haven't ended the relationship. You've just turned them into the enemy, and they're renting a lot of space in your mind, but you're still in relationship. It's just a really toxic and poor one.
I see that a lot. Again, it just becomes a game, and I will go back to the very beginning when you said there are a lot of winners. No, but there are so many losers, and the children are the winners of the losers.
So, thinking about this series about being justice redesigned, if you had to say one thing to someone, and these 14,000 applications that went in, and someone came across you in this podcast, and I said, what do you want at the beginning of this journey? What would you like those 14,000 people, or 14,000 co-parents, or whatever, in those 14,000 cases, what would you like them to hear? What's one thing that could just redirect?
Two things I think that can redirect. One of them are always the costs, because once you start this, you just keep paying and paying and paying, and that's it. Very often families are left with up to, I don't want to go into specific figures, every case is different, but you can literally lose half of your house in value just by going to the court. I think at the very beginning, if both parents just had a few minutes and some numbers in front of them, and you would tell them, hey, you've got £100 each now. This time in 2 years, you will be exhausted, you will be done, you will feel battered, and you will only have £20 left each, and your children will be completely messed up. Will you please think about this again? It's not about staying together, but it's about doing this in a better way than what you are about to jump in, because it sucks and it's long and it's hard, and I think that would be number one. Number two, the children. Again, it becomes a bit of a game between people. In fact, I was doing a social media post the other day, and I said, Don, it's okay to have differences. If one cooks from scratch and the other one prefers ready meals, it's totally fine. And if whatever trouble you're working on and you think that's the problem with the children, will it matter in 1 year? And if it doesn't, let it go. Just let it go. Just move on. So I would start with those two.
That's really good sage advice. Really good way for people to rethink, look through a different lens. So we've come to the end of our time together, and I think this has been a very valuable conversation, especially putting children at the centre. And I have a sort of surprise question for you. And that is, if I were to give you the keys to the Ministry of Justice and you could make one change immediately, what change would that be?
I would create the in-between stage. The stage in between file an application for the private children cases, and the case actually ended up in front of the judge. I would divert hopefully all of the couples, but I'm sure that wouldn't be the case. But most of the couples that are perfectly capable of resolving the situation themselves without damaging the children anymore, and without putting the children through talking to Cafcass and social care workers, because all of that is damaging. So in between stage, filing and applying and actually physically going through with it at the court.
Because that stage can be a year, 2 years, 3 years. It can go on for a long time. So, yeah.
So there is another statistics for you, and you can tell I have done my homework.
End on that. Go on then.
39 weeks, apparently. I'm pretty sure it's much longer than that.
That doesn't sound.
Yeah,
that doesn't.
But that is what's currently claimed on.
But that might be because by the time the application goes in, there's already been 2 years of fighting, because lots of lawyers have lots of cases that are stuck at various stages. Yeah, it's interesting. Good statistics. Thank you for coming so prepared for this conversation. If anyone wants to find you, where do they find you?
They will find me online on -1.club, or by all means come and check me out on LinkedIn. It's Kristyna Hawkett. I am a real person. Everything I say is absolutely true. Of course, by all means, come and find us on Instagram as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining this podcast.
Thank you, Maria.
I wish you every success with what you're taking out in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.